This is a podcast by the News Minute, and you are listening to South Central.
Hello and welcome to South Central, a News Minute podcast where we put South at the center. I am Pooja Prasanna and we're recording this on the 2nd of April at 4 p.m. If you are a regular here, then you're probably wondering why I am opening the show and where Dhanya is. Well, she's on a well-deserved, much-needed vacation, so you have to bear with me this week, but I assure you she'll be back next week, hopefully more refreshed and much well-rested. In this week's South Central, we will take a look at the Empuraan controversy and why the makers have voluntarily made 24 cuts and the raging protests at the University of Hyderabad against Reghunath Reddy government's decision to auction 400 acres of green space to make way for IT and infrastructure projects. And just a reminder, we are primarily a podcast, so make sure that you follow us on Apple and Spotify. Joining me from Kerala is my co-host, Leena Reghunath. If you're a regular, you know that she's a lawyer and journalist and an investigative journalist who's won many awards. Thank you for joining us today, Leena.
Thank you, Pooja. And good job with doing what Dhanya used to do.
And in the studio with me is Nikhil Narendran. He's making a second appearance. He's a lawyer. He's a partner at Trilegal. And as we learnt in our previous episode, he's also produced a movie, something that will come handy in today's episode. And in the studio also with him is Nandini Chandrashekar. She's a senior editor with the News Minute and she's also an alumni of University of Hyderabad. Nandini, you're making your third appearance, so thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me again.
Now, before we dive into the show, a couple of quick, exciting announcements. We had promised that we'll bring you a special series that will look at the spirituality business in India. We'll take a very deep look, ground reportage on how these cults work, where they get the money from, how they attract people, and some of their secrets. And I'm very, very happy to tell you that the first story is out. And the first story is on Auroville. My producer, Megha, and I, we stayed there in Auroville for a couple of days. And along with my colleague, Priyanka Tirumurthy, we have brought the first one. It's called RSS and BJP's Quiet Takeover of Auroville. This is just the first part. There will be a second part of this coming up soon. But like I keep reminding you, this is only accessible if you are a News Minute and News Laundry subscriber. So if you want to read how there are spiritual, ideological, and also cultural changes taking place in Auroville, then become a subscriber right away. You get access to the first part, the second part, and many more such series. You can also make sure that you power our journalists to go on the ground that much more, contribute to our reporting fund, and make sure that you continue spreading the word about TNM subscription. This week, Leena is going to do the honors and read the headlines. Leena, over to you.
So, hello. Let me start with the most interesting headline here. Kailasa issues statement denying Nityananda's death, says he's safe and active. So we have Nityananda, the self-styled God-man, saying that, asserting that he's still alive and safe and will be there with more legal cases to TNM, I guess. Yes, Pooja?
I was very fascinated that he came out and said, I was planning to live for 126 years. Now I think I'll live for another 150 years. But personally, I'm glad that he didn't just die. There is a lot more to be uncovered. There's a lot that he has to answer for. So also, we're trying to hunt him down. Where is he? Is he in Belize? Is he in Ecuador? Whichever part of the world. Dhanya is actually quite excited to go and hunt him. She'd gotten his first interview. So that will be interesting.
We should start from Bolivia. Now,
Bolivia?
That is where they have threw out 20 of his followers, apparently, for trying to acquire some local land. So maybe that's a good place to start to track him down.
You know what my conspiracy theory is? He's not in any of those fancy
right
places. He's in Tiruvannamalai. He's sitting there and chilling and recording videos. That's what I think.
But I have a question for you folks, since you're all in the media, right? Why is it called a self-styled God-man? Why do you refer to him as a self-styled God-man? In fact, any God-man is in fact self-styled, right?
I think that's us just being very careful. Yeah.
With that, we move on to the next one. This is from Andhra Pradesh. Pastor Praveen Pagadala's death, Telugu media delivers verdict before the police report. So the media speculation now precedes official reports. Telugu media outlets have been actively speculating on the circumstances surrounding Pastor Praveen Pagadala's death, delivering conclusions before the media before the release of official police and forensic reports. So he was found dead under mysterious circumstances. This was a road accident too, and he's someone who's quite popular among the Christian community, and so there is a heightened call for investigations to be proper.
No, this is very similar to the entire SSR, Sushant Singh Rajput suicide, right? Where the media went on and on, that entire circus, and the CBI closure report that said eventually that he did kill himself. He did die by suicide. So a repeat of that in Andhra Pradesh, yeah.
Yeah, they have obtained these also CCTV reports, CCTV footages, and they have gotten a witness statement, and they have declared that he was drunk and he fell off his bike and he had an accident. So there is no foul play, because Christian organizations have been asking for a proper probe, and the probe has been instituted by the government, but they are running 24-hour thing. The loop that of how TV channels go for it, they are determined to say, no, this was a case of drunk driving.
This is what happens when you don't have real content, real investigations. And that's where, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come to you. I'm going to ask you to become a subscriber of the News Minute. But it's very important to support organizations. Otherwise, eventually they'll have to fall into this trap of TRPs, which means that they'll have to do whatever it takes to, to kind of grab eyeballs. And it's a vicious cycle. So do make sure that you support independent journalism, not just the News Minute and News Laundry, but any of them of your choice. It could be The Wire, it could be Scroll, it could be Article 14, Caravan, whichever one you want to support, please make sure you do that.
And with that, to the next one from Telangana. German tourist sexually assaulted in Hyderabad, accused arrested within 12 hours. A 25-year-old German tourist was sexually assaulted in Hyderabad after a local driver lured her and her friend into a ride around the city. The accused, Mohammed Abdul Aslam, was arrested near his residence in Yakutpura. So I think the thing here is that the arrest took place within 12 hours of the crime happening, right?
Yeah, but this is also very worrisome. This is the third incident in this month alone in India. Some days back, a British tourist was raped in Delhi. Then you had an Israeli tourist who was raped in Hampi along with another woman. So it's really alarming because we haven't had anything. So it says a lot about how safe our places are, and you have the usual noises. So you have the same thing right now. In case of Karnataka, when this rape happened, and the government said, "Oh, don't travel late at night." So this is the kind of solution we are giving. This is really worrisome because these people had been here for a while. I think this German tourist, they were a couple. We need to ensure nobody wants to come to a country that is like this. Seriously, it's very disturbing.
In Tamil Nadu Congress announces black flag protest against PM Modi. The protest is planned during PM Modi's visit to Rameswaram. The party is also targeting the BJP over the NEET and Hindi imposition, and the Congress says the centre is undermining federalism and state rights here. Now, this hasn't been anything new to Tamil Nadu or to Kerala, where BJP has not been able to make big inroads. We have the Pomone Dinesha thing when Amit Shah was in and Modi was in Kerala doing the Padayatra and all of that too, and they had to abandon some of those tools halfway through and return when they didn't expect the kind of response that they expected from Kerala.
I'm sure the BJP will very soon start welcoming Modi. They'll start a trend to welcome him. So yeah, that plays as per script.
Moving to Kerala, after our discussion last week, the news has progressed. Kerala Asha workers cut hair as pay hike protest enters the 50th day. The leaders of the ongoing protest by Asha workers before the Kerala Secretariat intensified their stir by cutting their hair on Monday, the 50th day of the movement. This was very heartening sight to watch them in tears with their hair in their hands, and they had a long string of hairs lined up as a sign of protest. From Karnataka price hikes, diesel, milk, electricity and more set to burden consumers. Diesel price increase. The state government has raised the diesel price by Rs 2 per litre, aiming to align with rates in neighbouring states. The hike is expected to impact transportation costs and subsequently the price of goods and services. The Karnataka Milk Federation has also increased the price of the Nandini milk by Rs 4 per litre. The electricity tariff has also been revised. The approved tariff tariff hike is 30 paise per unit, and liquor price adjustment is also there, with resulting in a 20% increase in liquor prices. So all in all, price hike across sectors.
The state government has defended, saying that our milk cost is still much lesser than the neighboring states. But the fact remains that when, after the new GST regime, there is hardly anything that the state government can do to generate extra income, right? They are left with excise, they're left with fuel and such things, electricity and the likes. So, in a cash-strapped state, your options are either you cancel your welfare schemes, which is not desirable despite what a certain section says, or you generate income like this. Either of them have a ripple effect on the poorest sections of the society, which is just so unfortunate. Yeah.
And also there's an impact on the health, right? I mean, for instance, milk is one of the sources of calcium and protein for a large segment of the society. So there's going to be a cost on the government in a different way, right? That they're not even imagining. And that's the case with electricity as well. And precisely with this, the other way in which states usually make money is through registrations of vehicles. Now with this Bharat number plate coming in, that's another way of erosion of revenue. Yeah. Then it's left with largely just stamp duty and a few other things. And that's the reason, and that's where, the other context of this ASHA worker thing is actually the fact that the state is saying, look, we really don't have money to pay you, right? The center needs to do something. I mean, it's really sad to see the ASHA workers working, and it's upon to the government to resolve the issue. But it's the breaking down of federalism which is causing a lot of these issues.
Many people say, why is it that only opposition governed states raise these issues? And through that, they make the argument that this is politically motivated. But I know this from experience that even BJP-ruled states have the same problem. For example, Karnataka, under the BJP, had a big problem of not getting funds from the Modi government at the time when Yediyurappa was the chief minister. He, in fact, spoke about it on stage with Modi on stage because that's how desperate he was. They weren't getting, relief for the floods, for the drought. Where does the state, generate income from? Because the responsibility is on the state, right, to keep things running. So it's a terrible state of affairs, and that's exactly why we keep our focus on fiscal federalism, amongst other things. That's it. Leena, are we done with the headlines for the week?
Yes, we are.
Thank you for the headlines, Leena. Now let's get on with the first discussion. I'm sure by now you've all heard of the massive Empuraan controversy. There was a major movie that released, and right after that, our outrage factories did what they do best. They started outraging. This time because they had a problem with the depiction of the 2002 Gujarat riots horrors. Now, Mohanlal's fans, at least a section of them, took great offense to how this is depicted. They said that it is anti-Hindu, it is biased, and right after that, just like that, Mohanlal, the superstar, buckled. He issued an apology/regret statement, and now the makers have announced voluntary 24 cuts. Some of them might have been required, some of them not so much. But let's unpack what this really means. And we have somebody who has seen the movie. I must admit, right at the beginning, I'm confessing that I've not watched it yet. But Nikhil, you have.
Yeah.
Do you think there was a need to have so many cuts? Were they needed?
Not really. So something very interesting about this whole controversy is the fact that the whole outrage is actually about something which is in the public record, right? So the movie starts with a scene which arguably resembles the Naroda Patia incident, right? Which actually is a largest massacre in the Gujarat riots, where close to around 97 people were killed. And this film starts with the depiction, and it's all these facts are actually in the public record. It's in the court proceedings. There are inquiry committee reports about it, and the man who masterminded the attack, his name is Babu Bajrangi, and that's exactly the name of the villain in the movie. So why should the Hindus be offended? Why should, I'm also a Hindu, why should I be offended if Babu Bajrangi, who is a known convict in that case, he's been convicted by the lower courts, he's out on bail, but he's still a convict. And all these facts are on the record. It's been reported by several folks. In fact, Babu Bajrangi is on record in an interview with Ashish Khaitan during the Tehelka files, where he says that, listen, I've actually masterminded and planned the whole thing, and he had no remorse. In fact, the judge records in the judgment that he has no remorse, and he should be awarded nothing less than the life sentence. And he's been given a life imprisonment. So what is the problem if you make a movie using this person's name. And they're now changing his name to, something else. I mean, instead of Babu Bajrangi, they're changing the name to some other Baldev or some random name. And this, in fact, is actually proves that it's a much problematic aspect that we are looking at, right? There's a strong pressure, which is typical to, typically like our brown shirts or the black shirts used to march. There are these khaki shorts now, marching and alleging that, look, this is affecting the pride of the Hindu. I don't think any reasonable, sensitive and sensible Hindu will ever take offense to having such scenes, because it's criminals who are depicted in the movie. How would a Hindu sentiment be hurt if criminals' acts are depicted in a movie? It's a different thing whether it's done tastefully, whether you like the way it's done. That's all a different aspect altogether. And it's unfortunate that these folks are buckled to the pressure. It's unfortunate, but you need to understand that from wearing a producer's hat, wearing a director's hat, you have to understand that it's a large industry. There are many folks involved in it. For the success of the movie, sometimes they have to make compromises in the interest of commerce. That's probably what they have done. And with respect to Mohanlal, it's not really surprising, because he has done it in the past as well. There was an incident many years back. I was a kid then. He was along with Mammootty. He was approached to be the director of Kairali TV, which is CPM's official channel, and the pressure mounted from all the other sites, and Mohanlal in fact withdrew from that role. Very recently he was invited to Ayodhya. He didn't turn up, apparently due to because he didn't want to affect certain parts of the population. So Mohanlal is known to take such neutral stance, and he always plays to ensure that he doesn't offend any segment of the Kerala society, his fans. So that's not really surprising, but I can really understand why they took this call as well.
You say it's not surprising, but isn't it also disappointing? Because if anybody could withstand pressure, it's a star like Mohanlal. He had the backing of the government there if he needed protection, if that's what he was worried about. So, there was no call for ban as such from anybody in the mainstream. Even the BJP, they didn't call for it. So what was the need to buckle? Because you're setting a precedent, isn't it? That if Mohanlal buckles, what about others?
Absolutely. But I think the reason why I'm not surprised about the fact is that because, once you are really big, right, then the fall is little too hard to take, right? So it's such a big movie, and the impact could have been very, very big. And we have had instances in the past, right? We have had instances in the past where, ED and some of the other agencies knock on their doors. For a classic example is, what happened with KGF 1, right? I mean, there were a lot of raids and other things which happened after KGF 1 was released, right? So there could be all sorts of implications when your film is really big. There's a lot of money at stake, a lot of livelihoods at stake. That's why they probably took a safe call with respect to it. I agree. It's if you ask me if what is the right call that they should have done, they should not have buckled to the pressure. And you're absolutely right. Officially, BJP actually has not officially taken a stand against it in Kerala, but several of their leaders, in fact, made several statements, including their state vice president, if I'm not wrong, made a demand that Mohanlal's lieutenant colonel status should be revoked, right? And of course, RSS and Organizer has been writing a lot about this, and there are a lot of conspiracy theories which are out in the internet which says that, look, Prithviraj was shooting in Lebanon for RDG with him, and that time the Houthis contacted him and brainwashed him, and he became a jihadi, and all sorts of nonsenses.
His
right?
wife's also been attacked because she worked with the BBC.
Yeah, exactly.
As part of the documentary.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to withstand this pressure. But if there is one place that I thought a star like Mohanlal, a producer and director like Prithviraj could withstand that pressure, it was Kerala, right? Yes. So in that sense, the last bastion of hope in the sense against this whole resistance, that stand getting diluted is actually the hardest hit when it comes to this controversy.
But Leena, yesterday I was watching some news debates on Noida channels, and they were all talking about how, oh my God, Kerala, how could this happen in Kerala? What is the difference between what's happening in Mumbai with Kunal Kamra and what's happening? But there is a lot of difference, isn't it? Because like I said, even the Kerala High Court refused to give a stay on screening when somebody did approach it. Everybody stood by the movie, and Mohanlal buckled in 2 days, right? Even the statements that are far more stronger came after. So is it a fear of ED like Nikhil was mentioning, not so much a loss of revenue because of the people not going, because his fans probably would still go and watch. His aura and stardom is bigger than the BJP perhaps in Kerala. So is it just the fear of central agencies perhaps?
Pooja, I think there is a larger game at play here. So let me lay down the cards one by one here. This is Malayalam industry's biggest movie ever to release with 180 crore budget. It is most ambitious that Malayalam movie has ever gone. And you can say, we can see the collection figures that is coming out, the highest collection from overseas and all of that. And there is a lot of money and effort that has gone in. And we have the most bankable star headlining it with, Mohanlal himself. But there is a lot of now Suresh Gopi himself is saying that this is all for views, that they are doing this, that BJP never gave out a statement. Now I don't think that some of this we have discussed in the last statement. The kind of screenplay that BJP would have in another state, it wouldn't dare to have in Kerala, because the Kerala, the reality is completely different. Here is a state where minorities have an equal say in the vote bank politics and major social cultural things in Kerala. And so here BJP can never do what it will do in a Deepika Padukone movie of going and maybe cutting and burning and asking them to chop off that. But here Hindutva operates in a completely different level. Now the director of the movie, Prithviraj Sukumaran, though his politics in depicting the Gujarat riots in its best cinematic representation in a mainstream movie till date, in the first 20-minute opening scene of this movie itself, is something that is politically very brave. We can really we commend him. Even film reviewer like Anna Vettikad has called it a very gutsy movie and said that he had the courage to show something like that. Today, after watching the movie, she has put out an Instagram post to say that. So we all have to give it to him for the courage of the politics that he has displayed there. But let's also see that his mother, who has now come in defense of him and about how the industry has, sort of isolated him and not stood by him and all that. His mother was someone who had given a speech during the last elections commending Modi and saying that BJP needs a chance and all of that. And even Mohanlal is a very soft Hindutva person. I don't know if I can call him soft Sanghi himself, but these are all people with strong Hindutva roots who had written blogs praising Modi ji and all of that. So with people like that, you don't need to, threaten them with really threat of violence or something else. Even a small letter, like how the BJP person, like how he has pointed out, Nikhil has pointed out that a letter to say that his colonel position will be removed, or organizer writing article after article for the 4 articles altogether, I think, by organizer. So all these things are enough to sort of shake them, because they have built sort of this fan base on the top of these kind of politics too. So even the kind of targeting against this movie has all been gone in the name of Prithviraj and not against Mohanlal. Now again, the people who are raising these concerns online in online spaces know that they cannot go after Mohanlal because there is a big fandom and they would come and support Mohanlal, and Mohanlal has a strong Sanghi fan base too. So they attack Prithviraj instead for the movie, and Prithviraj takes a whole blame of having somehow hoodwinked Mohanlal to do this movie. That itself, I think, is a joke that people are sitting and speculating, oh, did Mohanlal say yes to this? Did Mohanlal see the first 20 minutes of the movie? Of course, he himself has gone everywhere and said, I've watched the screening, I've listened to the script for some 8 hours or something like that. So it cannot be that Prithviraj has hoodwinked Mohanlal into this movie in some way. But there is all kind of these kind of narratives in play at Kerala. And I think even this 24 cuts that are saying, I think if you look closely at those cuts, there is these first 20 minutes depiction of the riots has not been removed from the movie. So what they have done is to make it look like they have made a lot of changes, but I don't think that a lot of significant changes has gone into the movie. So the narrative will go that, oh my God, Prithviraj now or Empuraan now has done 24 cuts, and so somehow the Sanghi egos are going to be salvaged by that. But I don't know if that will make any major changes to the script or the narrative of this movie or the storyline of that movie by itself. So all in all, there is big money involved in here. There are a lot of people with very thin skin who themselves have very soft Hindutva inside them too, who are trying to salvage the situation because a lot of money is involved and you don't want this to blow up in any way or go in any way. But all that this has ended up is that what I hear from Kerala is that there is back-to-back screenings. There is even midnight screenings, and there are not announced screenings. So now one show is over, they take a 30-minute break, and the next show starts. And Kerala is having full theaters for this movie, and all of the releases are being postponed. So this will end up making it a big success. Whereas I think the cinematic quality and the artistic merit of this movie itself is something that, like all big budget movies, like it's some kind amount of disbelief and some amount of setting aside your brain, functioning apart, that you'll need to go through these big budget movies. But having said that, almost all the recent big budget movies in India has all peddled to the soft Hindutva narrative, and it is really heartening to see there is one movie now who had taken a correct political stand even while doing commercial cinema. So that is something that has to be lauded here.
But, I was having this conversation with a colleague in office, and she said she's not from Kerala. She said, this is the bare minimum, because we're talking about facts and we're saying that, the first 20 minutes are factual. So we're lauding somebody for depicting something that is recorded in history. Are we setting such low expectations of bravery in India? There's also this false equivalence, right? Comparing this with Kerala stories, where they really exaggerated, fabricated things, and that's why people had issues, and nobody even then asked for a ban. But here, again, no one's asking for a ban. There are some things. But since you've seen the movie, I want to ask you, is it too gory, the first 20 minutes? And some of the cuts were warranted because of that. Did you feel that way?
It's not really gory in that sense, because I'm sure that there are much more gorier movies. It's not the levels. I have not seen Marco, but I assume what Marco is all about. So it's definitely not to that level, or the kind of violence you see in Malayalam movies, Tamil movies, or Korean movies. Not to that level. It's very gritty, and it's a very you're basically trapped in a closed space where the whole incident happens. It's not the best of the artistic depictions possible when it comes to this. It is disturbing, and it's meant to be disturbing in one sense, right? Because the whole plot of the movie is Prithviraj's character is seeing the whole horror and then the sort of enacting and playing the part. It's a very central plot of the movie itself. So it's integral to the movie. So one thing which is very interesting in the whole instance is that while this is being shot, right, it's also showing, it's not like showing all Hindu characters in the wrong light. They've been actually protected by a Hindu character in that movie, and that's where these sort of perpetrators, criminals are coming in and barging in and doing the riot and killing everyone, and he later is a villain in the movie who is being taken on by Mohanlal and Prithviraj towards the end, right? So it's very central, and it's not like an unwanted part of the movie at all, and I don't think that it really needs a cut. That movie, if you ask me, that movie needs around 20-25 minutes of cut, as my personal opinion. 2 minutes is not going to definitely help it, for sure, but not for this reason.
But I think, like you said, the larger message, although I haven't seen it, from what I gathered, is that it stands for secularism.
Correct.
Is that what the core problem is? Because they've used Gujarat riots as a message to speak up for secularism.
Yeah.
And that's something we've not seen, at least in the last 10 years, perhaps
Absolutely.
before that.
Absolutely.
Look at what they did with Sabarmati Express, right?
Absolutely.
Is that where people are taking offense? Thankfully, probably not a lot of people in other parts of the country haven't seen it yet.
I think the problem is also that I think some level, at least those people who are taking offense are seeing this Babu Bajrangi guy as someone of their own, right? And then they are saying, okay, who's the main character? It is Mohanlal and Prithviraj, and what are they doing? They're taking on this Babu Bajrangi character, and he's being finished off in the last by Prithviraj's character, who is someone who is a victim of that violence. He grew up thinking with that revenge, and he has got his own journey. So they're probably seeing it as some sort of a Muslim versus Hindu sort of a fight, and against their hero, who is Babu Bajrangi. So if those people have a problem with it, I'd really like to identify and have a conversation with those folks.
Also, because we're talking about Kamra and Kerala stories and all that, there are 4 people on the censor board who are associated with RSS and affiliated organizations. They have cleared it. Right? Now, what is the problem after the movie is cleared? So it's almost like yesterday I heard, people talking about freedom of expression is there because the movie was allowed to be released. But there's no freedom after expression.
Correct.
What happens after that when the mob takes control of law and order is something that even the state government cannot control. And did Mohanlal also kind of amplify that message? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah. So, see, I don't think the state government is at fault here. I don't think there were any instances of violence. Not that I'm aware of. Leena, you can correct me if it's otherwise. But this is an interesting modus operandi of the way it works, right? The government doesn't need to necessarily censor or ban something. It essentially uses other elements in the society and they just need to dog whistle. Some members in the ruling party or the dispensation just need to dog whistle, and then there is a mob which takes over. That's typically the way in which thought is generally controlled all over the world. That's a much better effective strategy because it also gives them plausible deniability. So that strategy is actually at play in this case, and the fact that the makers, Mohanlal, apologized actually reflected that, look, that mob or that fringe or whatever you call it in Kerala, probably this is already fringe, because I met a lot of folks who actually are BJP supporters who had no problem with the movie, right? And I believe that large number of and I was in Trivandrum when the movie was released. Large number of people in Trivandrum are BJP voters. There didn't seem to be that kind of a undercurrent in at least the local circles in Trivandrum at all. So it's at some level a manufactured controversy as well by a few very fringe members of the right, and that's actually created this pressure. And unfortunately, the fact that they apologize is further strengthening this whole theory that mob sort of demanding for a ban will actually lead to a ban.
And Murali Gopi, the writer, his politics also is a little, for people outside, it's hard to understand, isn't it? His father was a BJP RSS man.
Correct.
He makes a movie like Left, Right, Left. And then here also, I think that he's also bashed the Congress to a certain level, very subtly, although, he's criticized Rahul Gandhi or rather kind of pushed this Pappu narrative. He's also slightly criticized the left government because he's called out on their secularism, questioned their secularism. So he wants to position himself in the space where I am apolitical or I'm agnostic politically, I'll take on everybody. And then he goes ahead and makes this movie. Is that confusion? Is that deliberate? How do you see this?
Look, I don't know Murali Gopi personally, but watching his movies, he's one of the first writers to give so much prominent space for RSS and Sangh politics in mainstream Malayalam movies. In fact, he's one of the first to do that, right? At least in the mainstream movies. And he always claims in his interviews that he is actually sort of an apolitical person. He claims that he is anti-right in some of his interviews. But typically when someone is apolitical and affluent, they're usually right-wing. That's typically how it is, right? So I'm assuming he is in fact, I don't know, you have to believe what he says, but the message that he has constantly sent out is that he is an apolitical but slightly leading towards right-wing guy. And he is probably enjoying this moment in one way or the other, I believe. He in fact has even if he is right, he's taken on the right pretty much very strongly in this movie. You need to give him credit to it if that is in fact his political philosophy. And the other thing that's very interesting is that he's not largely gone after left and the Congress in this movie so much, but he is giving subtle sort of jolts at their politics. He's making fun of them. He's done that in the previous edition of this movie as well. There is one thing that he is saying probably which could be the other reason why there could be an offense, is the fact that they're sort of hinting that, look, the coastal line of Kerala is actually a good way for a lot of drugs to be smuggled into the country, right? That's a sort of subtle message, and the fact that a right-wing politician is leading that is probably something which is also, that's an allegation which is also being made in the movie. So he's actually made a very bold call for someone who largely a lot of people who believe is right. He's actually done something very bold by making this movie and making a lot of potshots at the right-wing ecosystem in the country.
Empuraan is an outlier in the way that a big budget movie was produced out of Kerala, which is not what Malayalam movies usually do. So Empuraan is definitely an outlier, and this whole backlash and how things are playing out, this is also not anything that Kerala has seen in the usual. And when you ask why a big star like Mohanlal, who has enough protections and whom nothing can touch, has to come out and apologize. I think we often forget that resistance doesn't come from the most powerful, or the most privileged people. Resistance is always an act for, like my friend who I was having a conversation said, like people like us who don't have enough money to pay for an auto to the next bus stop have the courage to speak our minds out. But when you live in big empires of, that has built on that employ a lot of people and have taken a lot of money, it takes a lot for you to then be brave and listen to. And this kind of bravery, I don't expect from someone like Mohanlal at all. I think it was, for me, just looked at a very natural sequence of events that someone like him, with the slightest whiff that this is not business as usual, people are just not going to be, oh, Mohanlal, but some of them are going to be offended by this movie. So the first thing is to, turn to his advisors like Major Ravi and ask him what can be done and just take that on board and go and apologize. So I don't think a different script can be, look at what WCC faced. Let's do for that instance, I've spoken about this couple of times, like when they faced their first press conference to air their, their difficulties from inside the industry, to take out the big names, to go and criticize someone like Mammootty and his movie in the way it has depicted sexism and all of that, and the kind of online hatred and boycotting movies and denying them roles and all that, they never buckled down and apologized. We never saw an instance like that from WCC. So it is people who sometimes, are not that privileged as you think, who will put up the biggest resistance, who will speak their mind and who will take their stand and remain in them. We cannot so much expect that from the privileged, but I don't think this is going to set anyway. Whatever has happened with Empuraan is going to be depict what Kerala movies or Malayalam movies are going to be. They are going to be edgy movies going forward too, and I think even what has happened to Empuraan will only, the state is rallying behind it and will only fetch it more money, is what I believe.
And is it also unfair to say that this is a reflection of growing intolerance of Kerala society at large? Because that's the conversation nationally. Is that a bit of an exaggeration and also a very not nuanced way of looking at this controversy?
Pooja, there is more and more sunkification of Kerala, and that has always been there. The soft Hindutva. This is the state with the largest number of shakas, right? And if Murli Gopi doesn't depict shakas, really, I think there is something missing with what all scriptwriters are doing, because it's such a part of fabric of Kerala society that a state which fails again and again to give BJP votes, but still has the most number of shakas on the ground. So there is something about Kerala that we have willfully ignored or tried to live in oblivion in the way we say stories about Kerala. So this is a state where some of this exists. But if you see intolerance is not the kind of intolerance that Deepika Padukone movie where she, the Rani Padmavati, right, where they had to put CGI to cover her stomach because Rani Padmavati can't expose her stomach and dance. And so, sorry?
Padmavat.
Padmavat movie, and then they were even they said that they'll chop her head off, right? That kind of threats were issued. So none of this. So what is the level of intolerance that we are talking about? I remember somewhere when I went and complained about the sexism of Kerala, so someone in North India said that, your scale is very distorted, because whereas in Kerala, woman can say this to a face of men, a Punjabi woman or a Chhattisgarhi woman will not be able to say, so your scale is a bit distorted. So intolerance is going to be there, but it's not going to be intolerance of a certain level that we are used to when we read the national headlines. But Kerala society will always have some of these forces playing in. There is casteism here, there is all those things. There is soft Sangism and Hindutva masked as something else and all very much here. So this just needed such a venting out here at the stage.
So just to add on, right? So let's not forget the fact that we've actually had instances like this done by French. There was an instance where a professor's hand was chopped off by many years ago. by PFI activists in Kerala. So there are these sort of pockets of intolerance which is there, but largely we have managed to keep it off in terms of not let them enter the mainstream, right? And largely, if you just look at it, for entering the mainstream, you need that sizable number, and probably BJP is a party with that sizable number.
Right.
So I think that's why you're seeing the effects of this playing out in Kerala.
Yeah, because Parvati herself has gotten rape threats, death threats, and that has not stopped her from speaking her mind. And Deepika Padukone has become the latest, punchback for the right wing after that movie, and even that other Chapak, right, which she produced. Yeah. There was a call to boycott. That happens very regularly in other states, which is why I keep saying that it's extremely disappointing that they voluntarily, wanted to cut so many scenes. But Nandini, since you've been sitting so quietly, I want to kind of draw you in here. Does this signify a loss of middle ground? Because even a movie based on facts, which claims that it is fictionalized, not like Kerala Story where they're saying it is based on true facts, which they were later made to revoke. Even that is seeing so much resistance and so much pushback. So are we looking at a society so polarized, Kerala or other parts of the country, where we are seeing that middle ground shrinking further and further?
We are, because the people who are protesting are making so much noise. It descends into violence immediately. There is no talk. The first thing you ask is make a cut here. You demand, you say no, you issue death threats. There is no voice on the other side to be heard. Even if the people protesting are small in number, they are so loud. And, it should scare potential directors away and, it's like self-censor themselves, So, yes, I'm afraid it is. I see this happening more and more. And if you venture anywhere close to sensitive topics like this, truth, no truth, there is going to be a problem. And one can't argue creative freedom, creative process, nothing. It doesn't matter. Here's a bunch of thugs who want these things to happen, and they will make it happen, and they will go to any extent to make it happen. And that is, when you have the threat of violence, everything slows down. Nobody wants to risk it. Nobody wants innocents to get hurt in this process. So yes, it's and the more that happens, the more people objecting to it find it easier to do it. Why not push the envelope? So yes, I do see that happening more and more.
In another southern state, we have the state government behaving like thugs. And, we've seen almost something similar to mob justice happening in Telangana. As we're recording this, there are protests raging in the University of Hyderabad, where students are protesting against the Reghunath Reddy government's decision to auction 400 acres of land. Now, why is this land important? This is one of the last lung spaces in Hyderabad. This is in the western part of the city. The legalities aside, the accusation is that the Reghunath Reddy government, the Congress government, is using a loophole on the land ownership to auction this. And what is this green space making way for? They are now going to auction this and make way for IT companies to come there, SECs to be created, and infrastructure projects. But what is most alarming is the way it is being done. The protests have been going on for a while now, but this Sunday, on the day of Ugadi in Telangana, we saw bulldozers enter the campus. They are clearing trees that have been planted, that have been protected for many, many decades. And even students who are protesting are not being spared. Some of them were detained, some were arrested. And this morning, a lot of them were lathi charged. The chief minister went to the assembly and said there's no wildlife there, despite this being documented. He said there are no lions, no tigers, there are just cunning foxes or jackals, however you want to see the translation, referring to those students and activists who are asking for this land to be protected. To take this conversation forward with us, we're being joined by Bahar Dutt. She's an environmental journalist. She's a writer. And this is something that she's seen happen in many parts of the country, in many urban spaces. Did it surprise you the way it has happened in Hyderabad, or is it something that now you're used to, Bahar?
Well, Pooja, I think what surprised me is that we should be celebrating these students. We are the land of Chipko. And here we have students who are not being passive, who have decided that they want to do something to save the forest and the biodiversity in their backyard. And we are not celebrating it. We are lathi charging them and we're arresting them. So that did sadden me, but it didn't surprise me. I would say, if you look at it politically, from a political lens, every political party has a very poor environmental record, whether it's the Congress, the BJP, regional parties. So if you're getting into that debate, I would say the record is abysmal on both sides. So let's not politicize this issue, because the moment one party comes forward, they will have to talk about what's happening in the Andaman and the Nicobar Islands, or what's happening in Chhattisgarh, or different parts of the country. So I think that's where I differ, in the sense that when I put out this tweet, I had a lot of people from different political parties attacking me, and I said I'm agnostic to the politics of this, because it's bad either way.
Right. If we can look at the land controversy, Nandini, by the way, we have to give out the disclaimer. She's an alumni. When did you go to HCU? Many decades ago?
I passed out in 98 years.
Right. But you have also been tracking on your groups that people who are spread across the world, they are also speaking up. Give us context on what this land is, because there are decades of legal battles also. But that aside, it is very precious. It marks Telangana's pride. It is closely associated with the movement in itself. We saw students coming out of that university, and the very fact that it is one of the few green spaces left in Hyderabad. Is this part of the conversation in your groups?
Yes, one of the first things, it's a vast campus, 2,300 plus acres, and a lot of it, it is a biodiversity hot spot, and you have people who live on the campus are very familiar, people who study on the campus are very familiar with the numerous animals, the plant species, the lakes, we spend so much time there. So in fact, even before I was aware of this issue here, our friends groups, people we haven't spoken to in years, suddenly started pinging each other and saying, hey, this is what they are doing in Hyderabad, in the university. We have to do something. We have to, sign a petition or protest against this. So it's lakhs of students who have passed out from this university. Nobody wants to give up because there is no reason to. Yes, this belongs to the government. If you look at the space of it, yes, there has, although I'm told the University of Hyderabad has been asking for alienation of this land, it has never been done. Technically, it does belong to the state government. But does the state government really need this 400 acres right there for its master plan with international standards? They want to build an IT park. Why? There is no reason. And the way they have gone about it, there is already a contradiction between what the university officials are saying. Government is saying, oh, university officials knew what we were doing. University officials say, no, we didn't. There was only a basic thing. We didn't know you were going to go ahead with this. So the way that has been done is also very upsetting. And it's not just the students, mind you. It is the faculty. As of yesterday night, when I was speaking to someone, they said, okay, the faculty, everybody is upset. Everybody is upset. In fact, the faculty is joining the students, and they were supposed to join the protest today. Early in the morning, we saw the students being lathi charged. What is this? Why are you lathi charging? And the chief minister's statement didn't make it any better. It is not befitting a chief minister to say that you are cunning jackals. I'm sorry, that doesn't. What do we do now? Translocate some exotic species out there to make him care? Is that what it is about? What about the species out there? You don't need that land, really. But the university has already parted with a lot of land. Yeah. It was more than that. So we know, it has gone some 200 acres to 200 acres to 210 acres to Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, 100 acres for National Institute of Animal Biotech. Then you have land for Triple IT that went about 60 acres. You have a stadium. So it's ongoing. It's ongoing. So they are parting with land as and when. There is no stopping. What is going to become then? Should the university not make any attempt to protect its land either?
Yeah. One conversation I'm seeing on social media to counter the point that the students are making is that your university came there after trees, thousands of them were cut. So they're calling it hypocritical for students to now come out and protest, cutting down of trees. But are we comparing apples and oranges just to defeat these protests, Bahar?
Yes. So, Pooja, there's a lot of there's a lot of back and forth going on the status of the land. And I just want to clarify that irrespective of who the land belongs to, there are a number of laws that do protect biodiversity. So there will be the Tree Act, the Preservation of Trees Act for that state, which is implemented by all state governments. One is that we have the Biological Diversity Act. We have plenty of laws, the Wildlife Protection Act. If you see one of the videos, you can hear the peacocks kind of literally screeching when the bulldozers are coming in, heart-rending screeches of the birds there. So the peacock is a Schedule 1 animal, a bird under the Wildlife Protection Act. So a piece of land doesn't need to have a tiger or a leopard to want to protect it. Our law recognizes that from the smallest fish in the ocean to the apex predators to many thousands and hundreds of animals in between, our environmental laws recognize and protect all of them. So for the naysayers to come forward and say that this land doesn't deserve protection because it doesn't have a tiger or a leopard, that's not true. Legally, you can take this to court saying that there are species there and our laws recognize it. The second aspect which I want to highlight is, how do you protect a city's blue-green infrastructure? Is infrastructure only about how many flyovers you build, how many IT parks you build? But what about things like recreational spaces? What about things like your carbon sinks? So these are values we don't seem to recognize. I've heard the Congress come forward and say, no, but we're going to create jobs through this IT park. But what about, what about the aspects that the values that this park provides already, not park, I would say, but the forest provides as it is right now? The blue-green infrastructure of a city deserves as much protection as the cement, which we have all around us, or the concrete jungle around us.
Yeah, because according to HCU departments, their own registry, this land that we're talking about, the 400-acre land, has hundreds of species of birds, reptiles, amphibians, medicinal plants, endangered flora and fauna. And it also has ancient rock formations, something called mushroom rock. All of this makes for it to be called a deemed forest. And according to the Supreme Court, this can be called a deemed forest. Now, there is no involvement of NGT. The concern is the way in which the Revanth Reddy government is moving forward, right? And this has somehow become very typical of how this government proceeds with things. We've seen how this Hydra episode played out, where you don't give notices to houses. People are not given enough time to move out, take their belongings, find another alternative space to live in. And one fine morning, you find bulldozers outside their house. And next thing you know, it's come down. This is another way of bulldozer politics playing out, isn't it? It isn't communal in nature, but it's just as problematic because ahead of a hearing, April 7th, there is a hearing, and the bulldozers have reached. They are making sure that it doesn't look like a forest, so they can tell the court, hey, there is nothing left to protect, so we might as well build buildings there. Nandini, tell us about this place. I'm sure you've walked around. Tell us about this mushroom rock. I'm very fascinated. What is it?
It's supposed to be billions of years old. It's a beautiful rock formation. It's like a rite of passage for every student to go spend some time there. It's been, it previously had this a bit of a heritage site protection, but I think it was 2015. There was a rule which under, I think, Hyderabad Metropolitan Development Authority, they were supposed to protect this heritage site. So that rule itself was scrapped. I think it was called Regulation 13. That itself was scrapped. So mushroom rock by itself has no status, no heritage status. Nobody can claim anything to protect it. All the government is going to do now, if they occupy the land, is probably build 100, sell all the plots around it, keep this thing nice and say, hey, we didn't touch it. That is not what is to be done. Obviously, nobody wants it just because you don't touch the land. I'm sorry, I'm going to go again into how effectively devastating manner they have cleared the area. I'm being told that on the day of a festival, they start in the afternoon and they have not stopped. have not stopped in the night. They have not stopped for Eid. They're just going on and on and on. And as of yesterday night, I'm told they just haven't stopped since Sunday afternoon. So there are like at any given time 40 JCBs clearing the ground, and they take breaks. So one set replaces the other when one set wants to take a break. That is how efficient they are being in making sure by this April 6th PIL, whatever is going here, there's just going to be this barren ground. Of course, we were talking about this numerous reels that were passing around where you can hear the animals, and people on the campus, you have quarters on the campus, they were just horrified about what a nightmarish experience it's been. The whole area has been cordoned off, and you know that students were lathi charged 2 days earlier. They were lathi charged this morning. Why?
Exactly.
And I would just like to mention something. I mean, I read a news report. As of August 2024, for instance, this 400 acres where there has to be a building, whatever they want to auction off for some IT city of international standards. As of August 2024, there were almost a dozen A-grade office space in Gachibowli, and the financial district were totally vacant. Office space is lying vacant. What is this person doing? Now, there are also news that says, they are, by auctioning this 400 acres, they plan to kind of garner around 20,000 crores. Definitely not small change. But to what end? Is there even a demand for it? Is that what the government is saying? And why that particular piece of land? Why are they looking at it? Because already, if you look around the area, there are a lot of residential constructions. And by the way, Peacock Lake and the Buffalo Lake, the two big lakes, they're already polluted. This is going to make matters worse. Even if you keep your mushroom rock now because of public demand with untouched, you are going to pollute the lakes. You are going to be destroying everything. So no, you're not going to save these places by coming here.
Yeah. And, the very fact that students are bodily blocking these bulldozers, and they have to, because nobody's standing there. Just to put things in perspective, there is no environmental impact assessment done. The Telangana High Court, in response to a PIL, has asked for an expert committee to be formed. But the pace at which the government is proceeding, I do not see this when it comes to anything constructive, right?
Yeah,
when we have to build roads.
What are they going to find? A mound of dirt.
Exactly. Yeah. So eventually the idea is for the government to show the court there is nothing left. There are no trees. There was this one video where there's a deer that doesn't know where to go because, it's pulled out of its natural habitat.
There were 40 JCBs. Can you imagine the noise that they're going to make at the same? My God, it must be terrifying and traumatic.
And it again, Nikhil, falls on the students, isn't it? To protect.
Yeah.
This is something that impacts all of Hyderabad. But it's again students, standing there. The students led the Telangana movement. The students are fighting for this. Many of them at risk of their career. They're getting physically manhandled. Why aren't more people speaking up?
So I think it's the same point that we discussed earlier, right? I mean, the more you grow in your profession, in your life, in your stardom, it's difficult for you to speak up. For a student, it's much easier for them to do. And it's heartwarming to see them do this. It reminds me of Avatar. And at a policy level, listen, our governments need to really think through as to how important green spaces are for the infrastructure of a city, right? It's important for the health of the city. It's important for to have good public spaces where there is interaction, for the healthy life of the citizens, for better air. And this is, leave anything else. Any government in this country need to understand this, but that's the least of their priorities when it comes to building infrastructure. And there are many reasons. I mean, the reasons are, of course, jobs, economy, promises, many other reasons that may have. But there is actually a cost that they're not paying, because the forest lands that we lose, even if it's an urban forest, it takes hundreds and hundreds of years to recreate it. There is a ecology of the forest which once destroyed, it's very difficult to bring it back. And the world over, we have realized it, right? I mean, Singapore has realized it. Countries like New Zealand and Australia and the US have realized it, but we still haven't woken up to it, unfortunately. Probably due to our economic realities and the very reason why we had that right to breathe right? Campaign itself is points to that. I mean, they don't see the value in these aspects. They think it's a first world problem to deal with.
Yeah. In fact, the Oroville story that we were talking about earlier, one of the things that people are trying to protest against is the cutting down of trees to make a way for roads. Roads for whom? It's a small community. Yes, they want to bring in more people. The community took a barren piece of land in coastal Tamil Nadu, made it a green space where it is recharging water for the neighboring villages too. And now they want to build these cemented roads, which will increase the temperature. And for that, they're cutting down trees. And in fact, I saw something very disturbing. There is something they call the graveyard of trees. There are thousands and thousands of cut trees that are, just put in one fenced piece of land. But this is the reality of most of our urban spaces, isn't it, Bahar? Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, across. Is that because our politics is such, or is it because, can we just say that we are a overpolluted country and get away with it? Because nobody votes on environment, on pollution. Is that the core problem?
Pooja, I've been in my 2 decades of environmental reporting. One has always covered areas where it's a rural area, there is a tribal community, or there are people who are not as privileged as all of us living in the cities who are fighting for their forests. To my mind, what's happening in Hyderabad today is a watershed moment. It's a watershed moment because urban so-called pampered, privileged people are coming forward and saying, please, let's not cut our blue-green infrastructure. Please, let's save these forests. And it's not just Hyderabad story. I've seen similar stories coming from, say, a small little urban forest here next to the Delhi airport, the city I live in, which has the highest AQI. You have students fighting again, whether it's a wetland in Jammu and Kashmir, whether it's a biodiversity rich forest in Arunachal Pradesh. So I think it is heartwarming as an environment journalist to see that whether it's urban or rural, we finally broken that divide. We have people from across cultures and class coming forward and saying, we're not going to tolerate this. I think the wake up call needed is from our politicians, because they can't handle, a citizenship which is so aware and which is saying, we're not going to let you get away with this. This is murder, this is slaughter, and we're not going to let you do this. So I think our policymakers will need to keep up with the times and figure out where green issues are going to figure in their mandate. Because this argument that, we're providing jobs, so therefore we'll cut down 400 acres of forests, this is not going to work. And I think the students in Hyderabad, I still say it again, they should be celebrated for this.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it? In 2 or 3 months from now, I'm sure we'll see headlines of parts of Hyderabad facing floods where it'll start raining. In about 10 to 15 days from now, if it's not already happening, the borewells would have dried up because there's no underground water. And here you have where there is green space and you want to cut it down and make it cemented again, right? A concrete jungle. My question is, isn't it your responsibility to do both? To provide jobs, to create jobs, and to protect the green spaces? Why does it have to be either or? Is that just an escape route for the real estate lobby to kind of come and have their way? And it's almost like holding citizens ransom. Hey, you asked for a job and this is the price that you have to pay. But do we really have to pay this price, Bahar?
I think it's an artificial a sort of divide that is created, which makes for good television debates. On the ground, if you go and ask people, they don't see, I don't think people see environment and job creation as antithetical as it's made out to be in newsrooms, or, I think it's convenience. And if you ask me, this is nothing but a sophisticated land grab. That's what it is. Let's call it what it is. It is a land grab. And I think if we move out of this rhetoric of, environment versus development, there is lots of development which can create jobs. Develop a nature park there. Have people who would, with cycle rickshaws who could take people around, make it into an environment education center. Why not? Move the contractor lobby out. It is the contractor lobby which is salivating at this parcel of land, which I don't know how many jobs are going to be created. It will probably be for the construction workers who come in, but in the long run, who gets this parcel of land? It's the big companies. And I'm sorry to say, I think maybe as part of the environment assessment, they should actually come forward and tell us really honestly, how many jobs are they going to create? And could those jobs have been created in another piece of land? Why this piece of land? Why this? And lastly, just before I keep quiet, I'm sorry, I'm speaking more than I should, but I find it ironic that on social media, University of Hyderabad in January 2025 had put out something on social media saying we are celebrating our wildlife and look at the wildlife we have on our campus. And they've put pictures of it. So there's something dichotomous here.
Yeah. I remember a few years ago in Bengaluru, there was a massive protest because they wanted to build a steel flyover to the airport. And citizens came out in large numbers to stop that because it would, hundreds of trees would have to be cut to make way. That was a successful episode. Today, of course, the Deputy Chief Minister looks down upon the ministers at the time saying, I wouldn't have buckled and, given into these protests. But is it time for Revant Reddy to take a leaf out of Siddaramaya's book, perhaps, and listen to citizens, not use disproportionate force? He's a party colleague, right? Just have a conversation with people. Why are you protesting? Is there an alternate land that we can look at? Have consultations with them. Instead of just one fine day, come in the morning, use bulldozer, use the police force. Do our politicians don't understand policy making at all? That at the end of the day, it's supposed to be for people?
The irony is, Pooja, that at the national level, it's exactly the opposite. We have the Congress telling the BJP, look at what you're doing. You're handing over land to private companies. And here at the state government level, they're doing exactly the same. So as I said, when you come to power, any political party, I think, has a very poor environmental track record. And again, because we are trapped in this rhetoric of environment versus development, which I think is an artificial divide. So I think, yes, you're right. The Congress does have a lot of introspection to do, but so does the BJP. I'm not going to let go of them also because we have the Ministry of Environment and Forests. What are they doing? So if they're going to intervene in this case and not intervene in the states in which they are ruling, then it's a problem for them. So it is a clear political battle because you cannot have the Environment Ministry suddenly very proactive in one state where the Congress is ruling and then suddenly say, okay, but in the Andaman and the Nicobar Islands or somewhere else, we're going to have a different policy.
Yeah. State over, it doesn't matter who's in power, right? Kerala, for example, because the Wayanad landslides happen because of unplanned development, quote unquote, right? It's happening in Karnataka. It's happened in Telangana under the previous government. Why is it that it's not something that people vote on? Like she said, Congress positions itself as this very progressive party in other parts of the country. In their own backyard, this is what they do. Why is it that as an electorate, we don't care about environment?
So I think we have collective amnesia when it comes to environmental issues. Also, it's also a travesty of environmental issues, and because we have something named global warming to blame at. And at some level, we feel, okay, it's happening at a global level, so whatever I do, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's happening at a global level, right? America is polluting, China is polluting, so India will continue to pollute. And at a local level, the politicians respond to incentives. How people will behave when they give out incentives is what they sort of react to, what they respond to. And because of this collective amnesia that happens, it doesn't occur to us the fact that, look, at some level, the hurricane in Florida is related to the landslide in Wayanad, to, the floods in Assam. That sort of understanding we don't have of environment yet. We don't have of climate change yet. We don't have of global warming yet. I think that's the reason it's an unfortunate travesty.
Well, I hope that there is some change and, there is at least they stop bulldozing their way through the campus. On our part, we'll continue tracking the developments. We have our reporters on the ground. Janvi, Anjana and Bala will bring you reports from the ground. We'll bring you analysis, voices of people from Hyderabad. So make sure.
I will bring outrage.
Yes. And Nandini will bring you outrage because, like I said, she is a former student. So on our part, we will continue tracking it. You can visit our website to get more details of the developments. I'm going to leave it at that. This, I think, was the most well-behaved show. Nobody spoke over each other. Nobody butted in. This is something that you guys do not, the luxury that you don't give Dhanya. I don't know if you were being soft on me, but a mental note to tell Dhanya that when you're not around, the kids in the room behave very nicely. We're going to leave it at that. Next week
we respond better to smiles rather than warnings.
So we come to the last part of the show where we ask you for your recommendation. Bahar, we'll start with you. What is your recommendation for the week?
Okay, so I was thinking about it, and I thought Ramchandra Guha's, he's done an article. It's also figured in his latest book. It's called The Three Waves of Indian Environmentalism. And I feel that it's so apt for this week and the times we are living in right now. So I would strongly recommend that, if you haven't already, do read it, because it talks about our very own homegrown Indian environmentalism long before, we were talking about polar bears and melting ice caps, or Rachel Carson, or, saving, cheetahs in Africa. I think our homegrown Indian environmentalism is what we should treasure. And Ram Guha's article in his latest book, I think, has a lot of good insights.
I was saying the reason I'm smiling is you actually stole my recommendation. This does not happen often. And my No, but it is a book I also want to recommend. We'd interviewed Ramchandra Guha, and the reason why this book, was important to me is environmentalism is dismissed as a Western concept, right? It's something that the woke youngsters of today talk about. But in this book, he talks about Rabindranath Tagore, and from then onwards, how it is very integral to Indian culture. So all of those people, all our old timers who say that, environment is not something we cared about, things were all fine back in the day. This is a book that you should read. He's featured 12 environmentalists, all of them in like short stories, and featured how they fought during their times. Nikhil, your recommendation for the week?
So I recently watched, I don't watch series as much, but I watched one named Sympathizer. It's on Hotstar. It's just fascinating take on the invasion of Vietnam. And it's during the Vietnam War. The North is invading the South, and this person is a sympathizer with the Communist Party. The interesting thing is Robert Downey Jr. is playing around 5 roles in that one. It's actually been directed by Park, I forget his name, the Korean director who made all the, Old Boy and the whole series of, the Vengeance series. It's just fantastic.
He's doing a Kamal Hassan, basically.
No, I think the reason why they've done it is basically to show that, look, there is this Western American propaganda that all Vietnamese look alike, right? So it's a opposite reverse racism way to sort of depict them. So like all you Westerners look alike to me. Right. So I think that's why it is that's the reason why Robert Downey Jr. has played 4 or 5 roles in that movie.
Right. Nandini?
So in the last few weeks, we've been talking about this Netflix show, Adolescence. And we've also talked about how our own story on Manosphere, they seem to find a common ground. So in the same vein, I wanted to recommend a Kannada movie, relatively recent. It's called Hadinelu. It deals with, 2 teenagers. An intimate video of them is leaked, and the repercussions that comes and what happens. Very interesting. It's available on YouTube. It's featured in it went to a lot of festivals. It has got very good reviews. So please do watch it. Very nuanced, very important. Always people out there with kids will really get that part. Yeah.
Leena, your recommendation for the week?
Okay, my recommendation has got to sort of be an oddball this time. So to all those Mohanlal fans who depict him for showing what a real man is and what that nuttle is, spine that they call off and all of that, maybe they should really look at what the hero worshipping character actually is. And they can start this by looking at the 2 organizer articles that really got Mohanlal bending on his knee and apologizing, which started this whole thing off. And so maybe they could read the organizer pieces. One is Mohanlal's Empuraan. Prithviraj Sukumaran's film exploits post-Godhra riots to push an anti-Hindu political agenda, it says. And second is the unmasking the anti-Hindu and anti-Bharat narrative in Malayalam film Empuraan, where they talk about, distorted history, whitewashing terrorism that this movie does, which is what usually all the Hindutva agenda movies usually do. So the arguments that should actually stand against some of the films that they have praised, they've using it against Empuraan. So two of those pieces, and read that along with a first post piece, how Mohanlal and Mammootty failed and the national media failed the pioneering movement of Mollywood. This is written when WCC, looking at how WCC's action and their fight by Anna Vettigard in 2018. So all of this read together would give all those people who fandom these big Malayalam movie stars a real understanding of what their actual politics is and what courage actually means.
In all my life, I would not have imagined Leena recommending a piece from Organizer. That too has happened. So this is a very special episode in that sense by so many counts. So we're going to wrap up the conversation for today. We will come back to you next Friday with another conversation here at the South Central. Thank you for watching us today. But before I go, as we keep reminding you, make sure that you follow us on Spotify and Apple, follow us on YouTube, and most importantly, become a subscriber of the News Minute and News Laundry. You can write to us with your views, with what you want us to take up. Write to us at southcentral@thenewsminute.com. And here's a big round of applause to the team. It takes a village to put this together. So I want to thank our producer, Bhuvan, Jasim and Ajay, Dharini, Megha, Anjana, and Maria Teresa Raju.